Hear the lady.
I consent to the recording.
Great. Press record
Do you want me to
on my
record
thing.
on
Yeah, if you can
my
record on
hands?
yours. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, I'm rolling on my end now as well.
Great. Awesome. And because I just got you saying that, I don't need to do the count-in.
Mhm.
I don't have any honorable mentions, but no doubt I'll come up with some during it.
Yeah.
Same as before. If you've got some, if they're the same ones, we'll just go to, unless it's your number one, and then we'll then hold off.
I think so. I've got man, this was so hard for me. I'll talk about it when we get to it. It was so hard.
Here we go. Hello and welcome to Top 5, the Patreon-only podcast where I, Josh L, sit down with a good friend and we discuss the top 5 of a certain topic. And today, it's my very good friend. It's Alexei Toliopoulos. Yay.
Hey, Josh. How you doing, brother?
Although the listeners might know, my voice sounds a bit croaky. I had a COVID test this morning.
Really?
I don't think I have it, but I just have like a sore throat.
Yeah.
Runny nose. I've lost my sense of smell. And my body is just breaking down. I don't think it's COVID, but I just thought, you better.
Sounds a little like COVID.
Better go check. No, I've got a sore throat, and I had the test, and it's my second test ever. I had the first test like 15 months ago.
Yeah.
They don't dig as deep anymore.
No, it's a completely different experience. I've had it 3 times.
Yeah.
The first time I did it, they don't have this service anymore. I applied the test to myself. It was a send home kit, and now I would love that to come back, but
Well, the first time I thought, the nose one I'm not going to enjoy, but you do it. But it was the throat one last time that really it went so far back, and then then after that I was like, oh, this is all going to hurt. And then they felt like they were scraping my brain with the nasal one, and this time it was just the roof of my mouth, and then the nose one it went a bit further back than I would have liked, but it was not that. Like I reckon last time I had a headache for the whole next day.
I like it. I keep going back. I like that danger. I like that little sense of that little tickle that it gives you.
I had a guy, so I do these HIIT training sessions, and a guy there was like, oh, if you just go get the test and they get a medical certificate, you get $450. You just do that every week. I'm like, no, you can't. Like if you're going every single week and getting $450, they're gonna cotton on. They're gonna go, oh, this person's made like $14,000 from COVID tests.
That would be awesome. That would be a great job. Just like, I'm the guy that gets tested for the whole community, find out where it is.
Hey, what we're talking about today, now, this is kind of like a sequel to last week's episode. So last week I talked about top 5 actresses, female actors. There was a whole thing where I wasn't sure what they were called.
As someone that regularly talks about film as my job and hosts film trivia, I have to be specific, and I say, yes, listen, I don't use this term, but I'm using it to make a distinction so it's easier for you to understand what I'm talking about. Okay.
But it was with Kelly Festuca, and now we're doing the male equivalent. We're doing male actors.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm doing male actresses, actually, is what I'm doing.
Well, is that like people often, like, if I tweet something about AFL and then AFLW, people go, you mean AFLM? I'm like, I know, but it's I'm so used to saying AFL. I mean, all right.
I'll know what is in my heart.
I'll be better. I'll listen. I'll go away. I'll listen, and I'll be better. But we're talking actors now. I'm very excited about this because you are a self-confessed cinephile. You love the films.
I love cinema. I love acting. I love watching actors interacting with each other.
Well, I feel I'm out of my depth here, having someone with your expertise. So I've done this, and this is what I did last time as well. I've chosen mine to be people who I'm not saying they're the best actors, but they're the actors that when I see them in the cast list, I'm like, oh, great, I like that person. I'm in.
That's a good way to go about it, I reckon.
Even though the movie might not be my cup of tea, I'm like, I'm in with this. This is good.
For me, when I was putting my list together, because it's the thing I'm obsessed with most is like actors and movie stars. Like I love it. It's what I've researched my entire life is film. So I tried to go about it a different way. I tried to cut out the movie star from my brain. I'm like, okay, no movie star, because that brings a different kind of energy to the screen, different things. I'm like, okay, I'm looking at craft, I'm looking at different elements, I'm looking at versatility, and I'm looking at kind of technique and maybe groundbreakingness as well, like kind of things that I was looking at. And that's kind of where I landed. There's no one who I would say is a proper movie star like a George Clooney or someone who I think is a tremendous actor, but there's an energy to movie star that just draws you in differently, where they may not be doing like a chameleonic or versatile performance. So I had to narrow it down somehow is what I'm trying to say.
I've just chosen 5 absolute dreamboats. So
wow.
yeah,
I
that's how I've
like
got it.
that.
If you look
that.
good on a big screen, I'm in.
Who were your actresses last week, might I ask?
Scarlett Johansson was number 1, and I talked about how it was because of the film Her, which I really like, where she plays the voice of Her, and it was such a great performance that and I think it's sometimes like when people are so beautiful, sometimes you think, oh, they're not that good at acting because they're just good looking, and then you see in that film, you're like, oh no, you were so great in that.
Yes.
And it's yeah. So number 1, Julia Louis-Dreyfus was number 2.
Fantastic pick. Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I cannot remember the other ones, but I'll email them to you.
Do you know who I would have put at my number 1 if I was on that?
Who was number 1?
Number 1 and 2. I'll go number 1 and 2. Dramatic would be Jenna Rollins from like great 70s actress who was in like A Woman Under the Influence, John Cassavetes' wife and creative partner. One of probably the all-time greatest actor in my opinion. And number 2, aging too close to number 1 will be Lisa Kudrow. I love Lisa Kudrow so much.
I'm currently reading. Have you read the Live from Saturday Night Live book, like Live from New York? Yeah.
Yes.
I've never read it before, and I'm reading it. And Lisa Kudrow, was down to her and another woman to be on the cast of SNL, and she's like talking in this book, going, "Thank God I didn't get it because I wouldn't have got the career I've had now."
Absolutely.
And you think, oh, she would have been great in the show though. Yeah.
She's one of my all-time favorite actors. So I just want to give a shout out to Lisa Kudrow. It's one of the best performers ever on screen.
Have you watched the Friends reunion?
I haven't watched it yet.
She's really cool in that too.
I would watch it for her. I think she is the best.
Her and Matt LeBlanc come off great in that. David Schwimmer does as well. The others are in it as well. I mean, I think Matthew Perry he said he had some dental problems.
Yeah.
And so he was a bit out of it. And so, I don't know, he's had his own issues. But Jennifer Aniston and Courtney Cox, everyone's really nice. But what ruined it was they kept on doing all this other shit around it. It was like they had James Corden interview with them, which he didn't need to.
Let me tell you, James Corden ain't making my freaking list today, dudes.
They had like a fashion show. Then they had like Lady Gaga come out and sing Smelly Cat with Lisa Kudrow. And at the start, it was like, I don't think Lisa Kudrow knows who this is. And then as it went on, you went, oh no, they've planned this bit together. But it was that thing at the start going, I just wanted to see the cast talking about it. But then it was that thing, it was like, they obviously spent so much money on it. They're like, oh, we in case the cast aren't very good, we need to put some extra stuff around it just so we get our value for money.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. My number 5. Are you ready, Alexei?
I cannot wait.
Here we go. Number 5. Lakeith Stanfield is my number 5 actor. I think he's very interesting. So for those who don't know, he's in Atlanta. He's in Get Out. He's in Sorry to Bother You, which I think is a really great film, which Peter Jones told me about. And he's also in Uncut Gems.
He's also one of the titular characters in Judas and the Black Messiah, Oscar nominated.
Which I haven't seen. That's him and Chadwick Boseman, right?
No, him and
the guy who
Daniel
was also
Kaluuya.
the guy who was also in Get Out. Yeah.
This is a great pick, Josh. I think you picked a proper legend of the future, if you ask me.
Yeah, I did. Like, he's been in a few podcasts as well that I've heard. Like, he was on Comedy Bang Bang, and he went along with it really well. But you could tell that like Scott Aukerman, the host of that, was a bit like wary, going, "Oh, are you all right?" Like, I kept on kind of referring to him, like trying to get him into it as well.
Yeah.
But when he was in, he was fine. But then not long after that, I don't know if you follow him on Twitter. He had a bit of a Twitter breakdown.
Oh, really?
Where a lot of people were worried about him, saying, "Hey, if anyone knows," he's like Patton Oswalt was like, "Hey, if anyone knows Lakeith, can you go around and check on him? We're worried about him." And then the next day he came out and said, "Yeah, sorry about that. Just had a bit of a. I'm just going to step away for a bit." And so it was, I don't know. I hope he's not another troubled soul. I hope he like has a long career. But he's so good. He's
fantastic. His next film or film that's like in production with him currently is probably the film I'm most looking forward to in the next couple of years. It's an adaptation of my favorite book in the last few years called Notes from a Young Black Chef by the chef Kwame, who's in Top Chef and stuff.
Yep.
And it's like his autobiography. And so he's playing the young Kwame on Onwuchi in it. I cannot wait to see it because that book is fantastic. It's like Kitchen Confidential for a new generation. Yeah. And I love food movies. I can't wait to see him like as this character.
Just to go back a bit, you said it's the most you're looking forward to this movie the most in the next couple of years.
Yes.
You are forgetting Jackass Forever is coming out in October. So yes.
Oh, I've watched the trailer a half dozen times, baby. And I will break any restriction to watch it with you.
I showed my kids the thing, and they watched it a lot as well. And they're like, my eldest is like, can I go to the cinema with you? I'm like, no. We'll wait. I'll show you the clips on YouTube. Yeah. That's my number 5, Lakeith Stanfield. Alexei, your number 5.
My number 5. For my number 5 pick, this was a tough one. This was the last person I added in. And I wanted to put it in because I was trying to think of like, what are some other performances, some different performances that someone is only singularly capable of doing in this world. And the person I picked for my number 5 is none other than King Kong, Caesar, Gollum, Andy Serkis.
Yes. Nice. Because he played the name's blanking for me now, but the what's his name? He was
from the Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll.
Ian Jury. There you go. He played Ian Jury.
There you go.
Yeah. And he was great in that. That's a really the movie. I didn't know that story. I knew the band, but I didn't know the story. And I found it fascinating.
He's fantastic in it. He is a really great actor. But the reason he made the list is because he kind of invented a new form of acting in like this physical motion capture world.
Yeah.
And bringing those characters to life, which were just kind of creations of fantasy. And I've never seen anything like that before in my life. Like, I love costume movies. I love monster movies, and I love it. I love like those great performances, like the actors that played the monsters in like Universal Pictures and stuff. But I never saw it like this before, where someone truly could embody the character and transform completely into a different species or something.
Yeah.
And really bring them to life. And I think it's revolutionized acting. Like now when you've got like a villain or something, you know, back in the day, you've got Darth Vader. They just put like a stunt man who's quite tall in the suit. No offense to David Prowse. He's a pretty good guy and great actor, and he does well. But now it's like you can get someone who is like a physical expert in expressing themselves through their body and physicality, like dance even. And because of someone like Andy Serkis bringing that to the mainstream, I'm like, you can't discount it. Physical acting is so important.
All right. So say George Lucas goes back to the prequel Star Wars. He casts Andy Serkis as Jar Jar Binks. Are we talking about Jar Jar Binks in a different way in 2021?
I even think Ahmed Best, the actor that played Jar Jar Binks, is the precursor to Andy Serkis, because he was doing that kind of stuff that they animated over the top, and I think he's good. I'm actually stand up for Jar Jar every freaking day. I would do it any day of the week. I think that performance is okay. It's underrated. It's a movie for children. I was a child when I saw it. I thought Jar Jar was fucking funny, dude. I had a very realistic puppet based on him, made of rubber, that I loved.
I said this on Don't You Know Who I Am, but what's the guy's name who played Jar Jar Binks?
Ahmed Best.
So he tells a story that he believed that Michael Jackson's voice, the high-pitched voice, was put on. Do you know this story?
Oh, I've heard it. I've heard him talk about it.
Because he said that like George Lucas took Ahmed to Michael Jackson concert because Michael Jackson wanted to play Jar Jar Binks.
He was desperate to play Jar Jar. Yeah.
And so that's how George Lucas told Michael Jackson that he didn't get the role, because he said, "Oh, this is the guy who's playing Jar Jar Binks." And
I love that, because George Lucas, you know, not a social butterfly.
No.
It's a great way for him to like break the news. Like, Michael, this is my friend Ahmed, and he'll actually be playing Jar Jar Binks in the movie.
But Ahmed said that Michael Jackson dropped the kind of falsetto talking voice and went, "All right, yeah, cool, yeah."
Wow.
And kind of skulked off.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Michael Jackson. You know, I won't share my opinions actually for some reason. Okay.
All right, my number four. Number 4 Now, this guy, he did so much stuff, and I love him. He's in one of my absolute all-time favorite films, which is American Splendor. I am talking about Paul Giamatti.
Have you ever heard me talk about Paul Giamatti?
No, do you not like him?
He's one of my least favorite actors of all time. But he's amazing in American Splendor. I think he's phenomenal in that movie.
See, I was going through his IMDb, and he's in so many films that I'm like, I like that film. If that's on, I'm watching it. So Donnie Brasco, I like that
I
film.
adore Donnie Brasco. Love Donnie Brasco.
Private Parts, the Howard Stern film. Love it. I love that film. I mean, I was the right age when it came out. I think I was like 14, 15.
Yeah.
Had lots of boobs, had swearing. It was great.
I think it's cool. I like it. Very rarely is it the real person playing themselves in the movie like that.
Yeah. Truman Show. I like the Truman Show.
Oh, I adore Truman Show.
Man on the Moon. I love Man on the Moon.
Love Man on the Moon.
And although the Andy and I documentary kind of ruined a bit for me because I walked away going, I really like Jim Carrey, and that I'm like, that was just so indulgent, and I hated it. Dear
listener, if you've never seen what's it called? Me and Andy, or Andy and Me, the making of the Man on the Moon movie. It's on Netflix.
Yeah.
It is no shit the scariest movie I've ever seen in my entire life.
It's everything I don't like about actors, it is in this film.
It is phenomenal. To me, that's the movie I recommend all the time, is that film, because it is a great documentary about the creative experience and the actor's mind. And it's so disturbing and so freaky, but I think it is, I think it's amazing. And it's just it's got that moment in it where Milos Forman, the director, calls up Jim Carrey, because the only way he can communicate to Jim Carrey, not Andy Kaufman, the character he's playing, is by calling him. And he's just like, I'm at my wit's end. I'm going a bit crazy. This is the hardest experience of my life. And then Jim Carrey is like, I'm actually, I can do really good Andy Kaufman impression. If you want, I could come on and act in the movie that he's already acting in, playing Andy Kaufman, and just do an Andy Kaufman impression if that makes things easier for you. And Mila Shaw was just like, we'll just keep doing it how we're doing it. Hang up the phone. Just psycho shit.
Oh, yeah. Crazy. And they're going into, he goes into makeup with a bag over his head because he can't let anyone see him as Jim Carrey. Just dealing with absolute psychopaths.
But what is it about Mr. Giamatti that...
This is what I like. Okay, so in the Chris Gethard show, it was a cable show in a
great show
in America. Yeah. He has an episode which is what's in the bin. And it's just Jason Mantzoukas, Paul Scheer, they have to guess what's in the bin. And what's in the bin, spoiler alert, is Paul Giamatti. And the fact that Paul Giamatti agreed to do this show, which is on it's on public access. It's him having to sit in a bin for the entire show while people guess what's in the bin. And it is I know I've given it away, but even if you do know, it's still amazing because they get so close so quickly and then kind of go off on it. And Chris Gethard cannot believe how close they got, because I think Jason Mantzoukas or Paul Scheer actually says Paul Giamatti at one point.
Wow.
And it's wow. And then there's all this after the show talking about how, because that was a whole hour. And then we thought, if they guess it in the first 5 minutes, what's the show? Do we just interview Paul Giamatti about his roles? But I really liked it.
Yeah, I've come around on him a little bit, but he was always one of my least favorites because I always thought he just does 10 to 15% too much. If he toned it down a little bit, he'd be hitting a sweet spot that's kind of reality with a little bit of expressionism and a little bit bigger. But I always thought he was just doing a little too much choices on screen.
This is my thing, though. Is that his fault or is that the director's fault? Who should say, hey, just bring it down a notch?
Well, I mean, you can't blame every director and go, it's their fault that this guy did 10% too much in every movie.
Sometimes I think the director gets out too easy. If they blame a bad performance, direct it differently. Just say, you've got tape, just do it again.
Yeah, well, he's just always been a little piglet to me, I think, is part of it. This guy's also a little bit pig. And
I said they're all dreamboats. I can't, that's why you got over.
I think American Splendor, he's magnificent in. Sideways, he's magnificent in. Those are ones that really turned me around. And there was one a couple of years ago with him and Catherine Hahn, something The Status, maybe Brad's Status or something like that it's called. And he is fantastic in that movie.
Yeah. Well, there you go. My number 4, Paul Giamatti.
Wow.
Your number 4, Alexei.
My number 4, Josh, this is unprecedented. I've got a tie.
Ah.
I've got 2 actors I can't separate, and they do very similar things, and they're in a lot of movies together that I just had to put them in here together because I love them too much, and it was too hard for me to pick one of them. I had to keep them together. I've picked the original Odd Couple, Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon.
Nice. I love Walter Matthau, and I also like how Pixar seemed to draw him in all their films without acknowledging. Like, it's just, he's great.
He's got the original Pixar head because he's got that big old bulbous nose, and then the rest of his head's like a teardrop drooping way behind it. He is an all-timer for me. I love them together in The Odd Couple and Grumpy Old Men and stuff. But to me, they both have this thing where they have like a defined comedic persona and they have a dramatic persona, and they can switch between them like with tremendous ease, but also they have quite like a diverse filmography where they've both done like some of the best thrillers of all time. They've done some of the best comedies of all time. And I think that's so impressive. Like, especially like Walter Matthau, really one of the fucking slobbiest looking guys on the planet. And just like, my favorite performances of him, I love The Bad News Bears, the original.
Yeah.
I love him in this movie called Charade, where he like plays a spy. And there's this great film called A New Leaf, where he plays opposite Elaine May, and it's kind of like it's a kind of sicko romantic comedy from the 70s that he's just freaking great in.
And where I first came across him was as the neighbor in Dennis the Menace.
Yeah, Mr. Wilson, dude.
Yeah.
The original Mr. Wilson. Now he puts those chiclets in his teeth. Love that shit, dude. Probably my favorite actor from that day. I was like, wow, this guy is amazing. And Jack Lemmon, same thing. Jack Lemmon is so sweet, and I love that he can play like these hapless losers like he does in Glengarry Glen Ross, where he plays Shelley Levine. But then also like there's this great movie by the Greek filmmaker Costa Gavras called Z. No, not Z. Missing, with him and Sissy Spacek, and he plays the father of a man that's gone missing in like this political espionage scene. And it's him and Sissy Spacek, who plays his girlfriend or wife, trying to track down that guy, trying to find him. And he's just like phenomenal. He's like one of those actors where it's like they can play heartbreak so well that will like break your heart watching them. I think that also goes for Matthau too.
Yeah.
And the other Matthau performance I got to shout out, actually just remembered, is the original Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. Have you ever seen it?
I've seen the remake one that came out not long ago. I haven't seen the original.
The remake is pretty okay because I love Tony Scott, but the original is fantastic. I would recommend it to you because it basically feels like a thriller set in Seinfeld's version of New York, because it's just all these wacko old character actors, and the actor Jerry Stiller, who plays George's dad and he's Ben Stiller's real life dad, is basically Walter Matthau's sidekick throughout the whole movie, and it's freaking rocks, dude, to have like the best thriller of all time star those two like absolute fugmos.
Because we went into lockdown again. Every lockdown I seem to be adding another streaming service. So we just got Disney Plus. And
got the Plus.
Yeah, so I think it's on there. I think there's so many.
It's on one of them. Maybe it's on Stan, maybe it's on Plus, but it's on one of them.
So I'm currently rocking Netflix. So what have we got? Netflix, Binge, KO Sports, but I'm getting rid of that because the NBA's finished, and Disney Plus. So maybe I'll swap in a Stan. I'll see what's on.
Yeah, exactly. I'm on Doc Play. I'm on Mubi. I've got all the little mini ones as well.
All right, my number 3. Luis Guzman, who is such. Every time he comes on screen in a film, it's like, this film's just got so much better. Just because. I'm just going to run you through some of it. Now, I also like Paul Thomas Anderson, so he's in so many of his films.
He's in a lot of them.
Magnolia, Punch Drunk Love, Boogie Nights, Carlito's Way, Out of Sight, and Crocodile Dundee 2.
Yeah, he is in. I think Crocodile Dundee 2 is his first movie.
Yeah, I think it is. I think I've got his, because I wasn't sure where he was actually from. I know he's Puerto Rican heritage, but he's grew up in New York, so it was like he's American. But first movie was actually a film called Short Eyes, where he played a prisoner, but with no name. But I think Crocodile Dundee was 88. So Short Eyes was 77, Crocodile 88. 11 years just kicking around trying to find
he is the ultimate character actor, especially of like the modern era. Like he just pops up in everything. I think he's even in the remake of The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 that we just talked about. Yeah. He's one of the guys in that. But he is like, he will make any New York scene more authentic just being in it.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know what it is about him, because he's not like, I mean, he's just good. And it's not, you're not like, oh, he's super funny, but he's good. And also the films he picks, and I know sometimes like it's out of the actor's hand what they can pick, but he just seems to be in great films. And he's funny and also can be very, very serious. And it's good. It's just I got nothing else to say about him apart from he's a very, very good actor.
I think, like you said, he will upgrade any ensemble that he's in. Like if you've got him in your ensemble, that fucking rocks, dude. Yeah. Like he just adds a little bit of prestige to your movie, adds a little bit of authenticity, adds a little bit of humor. But he's just like I love him playing like a slimy, scrummy kind of guy. Just like absolute, like he's a unit. And him in Carlito's Way is one of my favorite character actor performances.
I didn't know. Have you seen the sequel to Carlito's Way?
Yeah, I've actually never seen it. It's a prequel or something, right?
I didn't. I just saw it on his list. I didn't even know that had been made.
Yeah, it's like called Carlito's Way: Rise to Power or something. And I know it. It's based on, so Carlito's Way is 2 books by this former judge, Edwin Torres. And the first book is called Carlito's Way, and that's what the prequel is. It's like Carlito is like his street gangster. He's rising up the ranks. And then there's a sequel to that called like After Hours or something, like generic title. And that's what Carlito's Way is based on, like him coming out, because it's a much more interesting premise. That's rare that a guy comes out of prison and like tries to go straight.
Yeah. All right. That was my number 3. Your number 3, Alexei.
This one was a tough one, but this is one that I kind of put in as an actor that was taken from us far too soon, that I think would have gone on to have singular talents that would have gone on to have like truly a career that would have known no limits, in my opinion. And they've acted a lot, mainly on TV, but in some great character roles in comedies as well. But I think their talent was boundless. And my number 3 pick is the late great Phil Hartman.
Oh, well, I'm reading all about him right now in the book, the Saturday Night Live book. Yeah. So funny.
Yes.
And like, so what was his, so SNL.
SNL.
The Simpsons.
The Simpsons. He plays Troy McClure. He plays Lionel Putz as well, right?
News Radio. Was he in News Radio? Was that
he was like the lead of News Radio. Yeah. He's in like lots of great movies like So I Married an Axe Murderer and stuff as well, like kind of great comedies. But I think the guy was like the rarest talent that could have done anything. Yeah. Whenever you talk to people that worked with him, or he interviews with people that worked with him, they just talk endlessly about how he was like the most generous performer that would elevate everyone else's performance being around him.
Yeah, so he came through the Groundlings for listeners. It's like a improv school, and they do the shows. And he was a bit older than everyone else. So when he got SNL, he was like 31, 32, around that age. And so, and he was in the year where it was like very like Adam Sandler, David Spade, who were all very, very young.
The Bad Boys.
Yeah, still. I think Dennis Miller was still involved then, so he was a bit older. But yeah, he kind of came in and with this new crop and was just kind of like very, very mature and very like sensible. And unfortunately, died. His death was his wife.
Tragedy. His wife. He was killed by his wife.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Anyway, but I think he could have had like the career that we see a lot now, which is someone who kind of like someone like Bob Odenkirk has, or like someone like that Breaking Bad thing, where there's someone who can kind of do it all. I think he would have matured to be like a great supporting actor in dramas as well, and like done Philip Seymour Hoffman type shit. He could have done anything.
I find Bob Odenkirk, I like Bob Odenkirk because I'm a big fan of Mr. Show. And I find it though, his acting style has always kind of put me off a bit. Like it's that kind of, but now it's just accepted that's what he is. And I haven't seen Nobody. Ooh, and he does look a bit, he does look or acts differently in that.
He's ripped, dude.
Yeah, I know. It took me like 2 years to get in shape for it.
It's whack, man. He's ripped as shit.
But I find him very funny, and so it is a weird thing of seeing him this whole new kind of not renaissance, but like shift into like action star or Better Call Saul, this kind of serious actor that I still can't get my head around. Going, yeah, but it's the guy from Mr. Show.
Yeah,
like and so, but there are some actors who you go, oh, that's just their style. You go, are they a bad actor or are they just super cool all the time? I was like, yeah, I think it's just his style. Because I had Ben Lee on my Don't You Know I Am this week.
Love Ben Lee, love him.
And I wanted to bring up The Rage in Placid Lake because I was in a performance of that before the movie came out.
Oh, then, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I watched the film when it came out because I was always a big Ben Lee fan. And then I was like, oh, is that film? I really like that film.
Me too.
But he has a certain acting style that you're like, oh, and it just takes like 5 minutes to get used to it.
Yeah.
And then you're used to it. And that's the film. But it was like, at the start you go, oh, this is a bit weird. But then you just go, oh no, this is the character and this is how this actor acts. And then you get, and I find the same with Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. I think, it's interesting, especially when it's like a comedic persona, someone like Bob Odenkirk, where they assume that. I think that that's interesting. Sometimes it takes a while, but it's someone like that, and someone like Phil Hartman, I think, would have been like much bigger at doing as well. It's someone where you add a flavor into the movie by casting like a comedic actor in either a non-comedic role or in a non-comedic movie. You're adding a little bit of flavor that's going to change the dynamic of your film, and also the way that an audience receives it, like how that they are going to interpret that performance and that character, that role, and like the ensemble around them as well. So it's just one of those things, like some directors really play with it. Like Steven Soderbergh will always cast like comedians in roles that are not comedic. And it's one of those things that always fascinates me.
Yeah. All right. My number 2. You've just mentioned my number 2. Mr. Philip Seymour Hoffman, my number 2.
Happy birthday. It's his birthday today.
Oh, there you go. We're recording this on the 24th. So it was yesterday for the listener.
Sending you one up to heaven, brother.
Yeah. But like, I don't know when I first, maybe it was Happiness, the Todd Solondz film.
Oh my God. One of the best.
Yeah. It was a scene where he's masturbating over the phone.
Yeah.
And I remember that film being I was like first year uni or something like that when I was at first year uni, I was hanging out with the third years because my girlfriend at the time, she was in her third year at uni doing performing arts. And there was some real film buffs in that course. It was acting, and so they loved it. And they're like, oh, you've got to watch this. This movie's so fucked up. And I'm like, all right, yeah, okay, I'll watch this. And I really, really enjoyed it. And a lot more so than storytelling. He's even though I love Belle Sebastian, I really wanted to like it because they did the soundtrack, but they're hardly in it. Anyway, so just going through Philip Seymour, and so Magnolia, Almost Famous.
He's freaking great in Almost Famous. And apparently he had a cold that whole time that they shot with him, and that's like part of the performance is that he's just like, yeah, I'm sick as heck. His
character in Boogie Nights is so great. That film is so great.
I'm sorry. I'm freaking sorry, dude. I didn't mean to fuck up. I'm sorry.
He's also in The Big Lebowski. Now, my favorite. I think I might do a best films of 1999, which is the last great year of film.
Get me back for it, dude. Get me back.
But one of my favorite films of that year was The Talented Mr. Ripley.
Yeah.
And it kind of got lost in because it was so many great films that year, and it kind of got lost. And and he in this film is great, and I loved it so much. Because I remember I'd already seen Fight Club, and a bunch of my friends were going to go see Fight Club again, and I was like, oh, I've already seen it. I'm going to go watch something else.
I'm going to go see the new Anthony Minghella joint, dude.
Yes, exactly. I was like, 18. I'm going to go watch this one, and walked away and go, oh, that's so much better than Fight Club. It was great.
But obviously, big inspiration for Cam and I in Finding Desperado was Talented Mr. Ripley. We both watched it a lot while we were making it because we were just like, what can we steal from it? Because we always want to feel like that movie. And also, I'm forgetting one of the last. I think we've talked about this before. How making comedy films is quite hard. Yeah.
It's very hard to do it, and I think people don't give it the respect when they get it right. But his role in Along Came Polly is so funny. Like,
Yes.
just him playing basketball as a basketball fan.
Iceman.
Yeah, it's so great.
I agree. That's my favorite Philip Seymour Hoffman performance.
Yeah.
Last year, Ben Russell and I did our favorite Philip Seymour Hoffman performances for our Patreon podcast, Cam and I's Patreon podcast for Total Reboot. And Ben Russell joined me, and we were like, "That's the one."
Yeah.
Capote, he's phenomenal
Yeah.
in. It would have been this time last year that we were literally maybe on this exact day that we did it. We talked about all his great roles, but I rewatched Capote. I rewatched as well. Oh God, what's that movie? Schenectady, New York.
Oh yeah, I can never say it, so I never say it.
Yeah, like that movie's freaking. That's a tough watch. That's a tough movie, but he is an all-time great, and he was on my list for a minute, and then I took him off to put Andy Serkis on.
That's good, because now we've got separate lists.
Mm-hmm.
It's very good. Also, I know this might be in bad taste, but like, for a heroin addict, quite a large man. Like, I just thought,
I love that about him. I love that he had a little chunk to him. Also, him in like little supporting roles. That's the other thing about Philip Seymour Hoffman. It's so good. Is small supporting roles, like we were talking about.
Almost famous, yeah.
Like Almost Famous, but that's like almost like the perfect character role for him. But even like shit like The Big Lebowski, where he's just playing, or Magnolia, where he's just like a guy who's in scenes, like kind of like a background character, even like proper supporting roles. He'll bring so much like just power to those performances.
What we're talking about Magnolia, I forgot this last week. So for the listeners, honorable mention Julianne Moore on my list.
Yes. One of the all-time greats, Julianne Moore. She'll probably make my list here. Like, she's that good. I adore Julianne Moore so much.
All right, your number 2, Alexei.
Number 2, my number 1 and 2, they were always my number 1 and 2, but they kept flipping and flopping, like who would be there. But they're going to go number 2 because, oh God, okay, this person's number 2 because my number 1 has, to me, the single greatest screen performance of all time. Okay. My number 2 is everything. Great lead, great supporting, great character actor, one of the all-time great character actors ever, and a close collaborator of my favorite filmmaker, Spike Lee. The actor is Delroy Lindo.
I don't even know if I would know who that is off the top of my head.
As soon as you see him, he's in stuff like Get Shorty, The Cider House Rules, Malcolm X, Crooklyn, Clockers, and he was the lead of The Five Bloods that came out last year.
Great, yeah.
But he's just one of the all-time great character actors. And every time I see him, I get the biggest smile on my face because I think that he is one of the best actors of all time. And he elevates everything. Like, he's in Gone in 60 Seconds playing like the cop chasing after them. And he is just freaking exciting every time you see him on screen. He has like the most amazing presence where he can hold a scene. And then also, like, when he cries, it's either terrifying or heartbreaking. Like, there's some, because he plays gangsters, he plays everything, plays cops, he plays like just any kind of role. Dads, I love when he plays dads.
He's also in, when I talk about the year 1999, another film that I love from that year, The Cider House Rules.
Yeah, I got a soft spot in my heart for that film. It's probably a bit hacky, a bit of an awardsy type movie, but I think he's really great in it, playing like titular. I would say he's the titular Cider House Rules because he freaking rules, dude.
Yeah, he's great. Good choice.
And he's in the Cider House as well. But for me, like, the defining performance is his work with Spike Lee. I love Clockers. I love Malcolm X. Malcolm X is like the great, one of the great American epics of all time. And he is kind of like plays like a gangster in that film. But to me, the two all-time greats is in Crooklyn, he plays like, that's a kind of autobiographical film about Spike Lee's childhood. And this is a character based on his dad, who's like a jazz musician. And he is married to Alfre Woodard in the film. She would probably be my number 1 for female actors as well. Him and Alfre Woodard in that film, 2 of my all-time great performances ever as playing these parents. It is so real. They're both so dynamic with how they like are able to like interact with the kids and stuff. Just amazing acting. But the number 1 is the film that came out last year, The Five Bloods, where he plays a Vietnam vet who goes back with his little platoon, his group of 5 friends, to find like a buried treasure that they hid out there all these years ago. And he is playing a Trump supporter in that film. And there's like a 5-minute monologue of him walking through the jungle by himself, kind of a bit lost and going a bit like deeply emotionally like upended. And he just talks directly to camera for 5 minutes as he's walking around, direct address to camera. And it is the best freaking shit you'll ever see. And it blows my mind and breaks my heart that he didn't get not only an Oscar win, but not even Oscar nomination for that. Because I think it's the best lead performance I've seen in years. Like, he's phenomenal in that film. And I love him. Follow him on Twitter. He's the only actor on my list that has Twitter. And I just love Delroy Lindo. I think he's the best.
Good. Number 2. I'm going to go check out that movie. All right. My number 1. Now, this is real basic bitch kind of stuff. But I've just got to say, every time he's on screen, I'm like, man, he's good. He's so cool. I just want to, and it's Brad Pitt. And
wow.
I know it's like but like he's a movie star, and he's in so many great films. And yes, I understand a lot of it is just him playing himself being cool, but he is very cool. I don't know what it is. Like he builds houses in New Orleans.
Yeah,
he's a cool guy. Like,
I love Brad Pitt. And I think that's the thing about him. It's a hacky thing to say, but he is a character actor trapped in a leading man's body.
Yeah.
And it rings true when you watch him. Like, I absolutely adore Brad Pitt. And to me, it's also those supporting roles where he has like enough of and he can hold his ego enough aside to do a weird character turn.
Yeah. So I'm just going through it. So 7, he's great. 12 Monkeys, he's great in that.
Love him in that.
Fight Club is like, I haven't watched it since I watched it in the cinema, but I remember him being the coolest thing ever. He's
phenomenal in it. Like, and he's the perfect person for that character.
And he's influenced personal trainers for years, where every person, every guy around 35 goes into the gym going, I want to get the Brad Pitt body.
That movie honestly doesn't exist without him. Like, there's no second choice. We're going to do Sean Penn? Yuck. No, none of it worked. He's the only actor that could play that role.
It's so funny. Edward Norton had a brief time. Everyone's like, he's the best. And then something happened. Like,
he's great, man. I love Edward Norton.
It must be him, though. It must be personality, though.
I've heard people clash with him a little bit because he cares a lot, and he probably kind of takes over some movies. Is what I've heard. The
last thing I saw him in was playing in Modern Family, playing like a Duran Duran style cover band thing. But
odd, but he's good. 25th Hour, great Spike Lee movie that he's in.
All right,
his best performance.
Brad Pitt, Moneyball. I love Moneyball, but I like sports, so that's why. But I think it's such a good. And I know lots of people don't like this movie, but Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I love that film. And
he's great in it.
I've had so many arguments with people about that film because they're like, it's so like, as if Bruce Lee would get beat up. I'm like, it's not like
it's fake, dude.
It's a
movie.
Fable. It's this guy's his memory of how he's telling this. Anyway, it's I love it.
Yeah, I think that he's great. I love him in Killing Them Softly as well. Like, and oh my god, and him as Jesse James in the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. Freaking hell, man. Like, he's a phenomenal talent, and he's worked with the best directors of all time, from like freaking like Steve McQueen to freaking David Fincher. Like, he's unbelielievable talent. Unbelievable talent, Brad Pitt.
And he's also every story about him is that he's so cool.
Yeah,
like he's just a nice dude.
Cool. Oh, and Ocean's movies, Steven Soderbergh, the guy rocks.
Well, that's the thing. Without him in it, it's like those films that you're not really watching it for the storyline. Like,
his filmography speaks for itself. Truly, he hasn't put many feet wrong in the entire he's been acting probably 3 or 4 decades.
Do you think he stays with movies, or do you think he's going to do a TV series like a
McConaughey? You think he could do a True Detective?
A new season of True Detective.
I think he could do it, but
him and Clooney doing pranks on each other.
I think you can't get both of them to return to TV. Only one would. I think George Clooney has done enough TV. I don't think he would ever do it again. But maybe
Maybe to hang out with his good buddy Brad.
Maybe just, but only one season. They're not going to stick around too much.
Yeah. All right, now your number one.
Okay, number one, and they became my number one over Delroy because they have, to me, the singular greatest performance in the history of cinema and screen performance. One of my favorite guys ever. I think there's a little picture of him right above my head in this Zoom chat, but it is Mr. Bob Hoskins.
What's the film?
The film, best performance of all time ever put to screen, in my opinion, is Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yes.
Every time I watch that movie, I'm flummoxed by that performance because you never doubt in your head that he's interacting with these cartoons around him. And so he incorporates all this physicality, like mime, like so much mime goes into that performance.
Yeah.
But then also he's doing a flawless accent where no one ever goes, oh, yeah, my favorite Chicago actor is freaking Bob Hoskins. Like, no, he's a freaking Cockney guy. He's like full Cockney. Yeah. He's so real. Like, he's one of the realest guys. And he's got this amazing energy where he can like pitch things up where he's probably my favorite actor of all time, Bob Hoskins.
I was talking about Who Framed Roger Rabbit just the other day to my wife because I was like, they should remake it, but just remake the animation because that's what's holding it back now.
No, you're psycho. How dare you say that? It's a flawless movie, in my opinion.
We were talking about this because after Space Jam, we took the kids to see the new Space Jam film, which is awful. My kids liked it, but it's so bad. It's just an ad. It's so bad.
Yeah. Like, it's an ad for the Warner Brothers back catalog, is what I understand.
Well, there was a scene, Rick and Morty come and they deliver one of the Looney Tunes saying, "Yeah, we can't do." I think it was the Tasmanian Devil, and my 10-year-old knew who Rick and Morty were, but he doesn't know them because he's seen them. He's just seen people wearing T-shirts of it and seen memes. My 7-year-old had, which this movie's for kids. They don't know who Rick and Morty are. Like, there was like the Clockwork Orange gang in the background scenes. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, this is so ridiculous.
Isn't Matrix and Austin Powers and stuff in it too?
Yeah. Like, it's so funny. So my 7-year-old knew Matrix. He knew Agent Smith. I'm like, how do you know Agent Smith? They go, oh, it's from a meme. I'm like,
of course. The Matrix is memes.
Yeah. And so
my God. Like, they've been red pilled. Your kids have been red pilled, dude.
But so I think I've talked about this on the podcast, and I know other comics have talked about this, but it's that scene in Who Framed Roger Rabbit where they're handcuffed together and they're trying to escape and they can't. And so he finally gets it and he goes, oh, and then Roger Rabbit just takes his hand out and Bob Hoskins' character says, what, you could do that the whole time? And he goes, no, only when it was funny, which is, it just sums up a lot of comedians I know.
Yeah,
it's like,
absolutely.
You do whatever it is if it's funny.
For the gag. A lot of psychos out there that we made.
I know, yeah. And also, I did, as a kid, watch that film and dreamt of the black holes, of just how cool would it be just to put a black hole and escape through it.
Exactly. He really, to me, it's a flawless performance because he makes everything real. Like, you never doubt any moment of that film, and it's because of him. He's like the great kind of evener of like what that movie is, because there's so much. It's such a technical movie because the cameras move, so they have to like animate things to feel 3D, even though they're 2D because the camera's moving. But he is the secret ingredient. The proper magic trick is his performance that sells it all. And every other thing that I've ever seen him in, I love him in Hook playing freaking Shmi. He's great in that little supporting role. But the two movies that really stick out to me as well as like great performances is this movie Mona Lisa, where he works with Michael Caine and he plays like a driver for a sex worker. And he's amazing in that, playing like this Cockney guy, but with like a big heart, but also like is in that gangster world. And the other one is another gangster movie from like that era, 1979, I believe, him and Helen Mirren, The Long Good Friday. And the movie ends with literally just a close-up of his face for 2 minutes as he's interpreting like everything that's happening, like what's about to go down. And it's just like a close-up on his face as the credits roll, and you're seeing like every emotion, every thought on his face. And it is, to me, the other single greatest moment of acting is just that face of him.
Well, when my youngest was born, I posted a photo of him on Facebook, and Facebook suggested I tag it as Bob Hoskins. They thought my baby looked like Bob Hoskins. I actually used to use it in my comedy, saying this is actually,
that's so funny.
Yeah,
my God.
I thought it was very cool. My wife was mortified, but it was like,
that's so funny, dude.
It's cool. Great list, Alexei.
You too, brother.
I'm glad we had 5 different actors.
Yeah,
it's always good. Do you have any honorable mentions? I know you did.
Yes.
Yeah, you put 6. Who are your honorable mentions?
The first honorable mention was someone that was hard to make the list. David Gulpilil. I love David Gulpilil. I love Australian cinema, and he's such a unique actor. But it was almost like the movie star rule that kind of stopped him from being on my list, because it's all about the presence with him. And I was like, oh, he's almost a movie star for me. I'm like, maybe I pulled him back. And then it was also Andy Serkis. I'm like, oh, it's such a unique thing. But then, of course, all my guys, your Harvey Keitels, your freaking Al Pacinos, your Robert De Niro's, Denzel Washington was on there for a long time, but it was the movie star thing that pulled him off too, because he's one of the greatest movie stars of all time. I fucking love Denzel Washington.
So I didn't have any Australians. I wanted to put David Wenham.
I love Wenham,
because I interviewed him and he was super cool and super nice to me.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, he's such a nice guy. But yeah, I couldn't.
He used to come to a video store I worked at when I first started doing stand-up.
Did we talk about this? I think we talked about this on the main podcast, but
maybe
he was filming when I asked him what he got coming up, he goes, I'm trying to get this film made, which is about working in a sex video shop, like video sex shop, on the Cross. And I think it was
that's where I used to work, was a video store in King's Cross.
Yeah.
That he lived there.
Yeah, well, maybe you inspired him. Maybe there was
maybe it was me. I'm like, dude, rent the pornos, please rent some pornos. No one rents the pornos.
but I was like, because he was really passionate about it. I was like, oh, I want to know what's happened to that film.
Yeah,
he just kind of couldn't get the funding and went,
I might have to ask him if I ever get to interview him. Yeah. I'm like, dudes, what's up with a porno movie about my life that you're gonna make?
I'm gonna be it. Hey, Alexei, where can people find you? You've got a couple of pods.
Yeah, check out Total Reboot with me and Cameron James. At the moment, I am doing a mini series with Aaron Chen and Mitch Orr called Cuisine on Screen, about the greatest food movies of all time. So we just did an episode about Ratatouille. That is late. In this current world, it was meant to come out yesterday, but I found out that I had to move house and I could not be bothered to edit the podcast. So I put the word out that's going to be late.
Yeah.
But it might be out by the time this one is out.
Have you got Jon Favreau's Chef?
We already did an episode on that with Mitch Orr 2 years ago, because it's a Bollywood remake.
What I love about that is he loves that film so much, and he's still going on about. So he's got the Chef Show on Netflix.
Love the Chef Show,
and he always talks about that film. And even if he's promoting some Iron Man Avengers, he's always talking about when I play the chef. And it's like, what's going on? Because he did all that trading.
Do you know who else loves that movie as much as him? Me, brother. It's one of my favorite movies. I probably see that movie 20 times. I love it so much.
Well, I cooked the fried rice from the film.
Wow.
Yeah, because there's recipes of it up there. It's really good. You put orange juice. That's the secret.
That's the secret, dude.
All right, check out Alexei's pods. Thank you so much for doing this episode.
My pleasure.
Everyone around the country, hopefully, if you're in lockdown, you're staying safe. You're washing your hands, wearing your mask, getting that vaccine if you can, and hopefully, I'll be able to do some live shows when things open up again. Brisbane, hold tight. They've been postponed, but I'll come up.
Yeah,
I like Brisbane. All right,
come to Sydney as well once we're free again, dude. Do a show in Sydney.
October 22 is when Jackass premieres.
Yeah.
Maybe there'll be Jackass during the day, podcast in the afternoon.
That'll be awesome.
That's a go. All right. Thank you, Alexei. I'll see you next time. Bye.
See you next time.
That was great.
All right. Let me hit stop and I'll